We're going to go to the public hearing, agenda item number 3, which is the consideration of an appeal of the Planning Commission. Basically, we're revisiting it from last time due to some procedural issues, and there's a lot of procedure. I will be reading verbatim just to make sure we are on the up and up and do this the right way the first time. But this is related to a use permit. Let's see, appeal filed on behalf of Stop the Dump, the site located on 140 Epley Drive in Yuba City. And Darren Gale has a presentation for us briefly.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Darren Gale, your Interim Development Services Director. This evening, I will not go through an exhaustive presentation like we did last meeting, but I do have all the slides if the council would like that I could go through all of them. But I'll go over a few of the highlights and a couple additional things that I've included. As the mayor stated, this is consideration of appeal the Planning Commission's decision for use permit 1705, development permit 1703, and the environmental assessment 1710. The location of the property is located on the corner of Epley and Burns, and Putman and Epley. Sorry about that. This is the location in the city's industrial area. It is east of Garden Highway. A little bit about the site history. The use permit, there was first use permit approved in February of 2008. That's use permit 07-12. That's currently what they're operating under. It's 3 acres, there's 5 buildings, it's a recycling facility, and as I mentioned, the applicant is currently under this use. Use permit 1201 was approved by the Planning Commission, but has not been effectuated yet, but it is valid until 2020. It established a large volume transfer station, removal of 2 of those 5 buildings I mentioned, and construction of a new little over 18,000 square foot building, and allows them 100 tons or less per day of mixed recyclable and solid waste. Recycling Industries is the owner of the property. They've requested authorization to amend and expand a previously approved use permit, which would include a use permit, development plan, and environmental assessment that I just mentioned. RI's proposal to the city is part of their application. So this is what we received in our application. They asked to expand from 3 to 4 acres, increase a maximum daily intake from 100 tons to 300 tons per day, no limitation on truck deliveries, and instead of an 18,500 square foot building, they're going to do a 21,600 square foot building, and the site plan changed a little bit. This is an aerial of the proposed site. The area in blue is the additional acre. So what they're currently operating on is the 3 acres, not including the blue. The blue area is currently not developed. I won't go over all of this, but this is a little spreadsheet that shows what's currently approved under use permit 1201 that has not been effectuated. It's what RI proposed, and it's what the Planning Commission approved. And I just want to highlight a couple things. The max tons per day, although RI proposed 300, what the City Council is considering this evening is only 100 tons per day, where they asked for no restrictions on putrescible materials. What's before you is what they currently have today at 10%. There's some additional conditions on this project. There's 60 in total, which place additional restrictions than what they currently have today in use permit 1201. In addition to that, it also adds additional conditions than what was approved by the Planning Commission. A couple other things, changes. Currently, there's no restrictions on their hours of operations. This would put restrictions on their hours of operations. There's limited restrictions on how green waste is brought to the facility, but there's no restriction on how quickly that needs to be removed currently. That is one of the additional conditions mentioned here, that it has to be done within 48 hours of acceptance. Queuing, currently, their site, they can queue back onto the streets. This use permit would prohibit or restrict the queuing of vehicles, and they can't just direct the vehicles to go around the street. And then finally, the origination of waste. Currently, they can take basically wherever it comes from. One of the conditions here is they're actually required to only accept garbage from sources from Yuba and Sutter counties. This is a site plan of the project that's being proposed. I just want to point out, so Epley is here, and this is Putnam, and this is their new facility that they're proposing of a little over 21,000. And the old project actually had the 18,000 square foot building in this area. Am I correct? And this did not allow for much queuing on their property, and so it could be that cars would queue back onto it. This way, there's actually this entire area that they're able to queue. They obviously have a weigh station. Also, if they were to get backed up, they do have some areas where they can place some folks. Of course, I'm sure that they want to weigh them, because my assumption is that's how they will receive payment, based upon weight. So since this project was approved by the Planning Commission, the appellant and applicant met and came to a mutual agreement on modifications to the conditional use permit. These modifications placed revised and additional conditions on this project, and staff supports these modifications. Each one of those conditions were spoken of in depth at the last meeting, and I do not plan on speaking about those each separately. I do want to talk a little bit about inspections, specifically as it relates to the city's inspections. First, our code enforcement officer will, at least for the first 18 months, we plan on doing a monthly site visit to ensure compliance with the city conditions. Quarterly, there's a requirement the documentation needs to be provided to the city. We will also have an on-site quarterly meeting with the operator and make sure that we receive those documents and we place them in the file with the project. Public Works, during the application for their building permit, will determine what type of pretreatment requirements there will be required for sewer, if any. The local enforcement agency, which is Yuba County, will have monthly site visits. To my knowledge, it's not like they call and say, hey, we're coming. These are unannounced site visits, as will the city's site visits. And then also the Feather River Air Quality Management District will do visits. They stated that it'll mainly be complaint driven. So to conclude, the Planning Commission approved the project and say the Planning Commission approved project will not be able to expand its material stream any more than what was currently approved today. The new project will operate under stricter conditions than was approved under the previous use permit. There has been prepared and reviewed by qualified professionals an environmental document that concluded the revised project will not create any potential significant environmental impacts. The subsequent mitigated negative declaration meets all standards established by the California Environmental Quality Act, more commonly known as CEQA. Based on staff's review of the PIL and CEQA, the negative declaration does not need to be recirculated. That was one of the questions put into the PIL. The city otherwise has adequate permit enforcement powers, so bonding is not required. And finally, this is a new issue. It is mentioned in the staff report. It should say the appellant, not the applicant. The appellant is requesting a refund of their appeal fees. Those fees are $747.09. So the recommendation this evening is to conduct a public hearing and to incorporate all documents and comments provided at the January 15th hearing into the record. We do have a binder out in the foyer with all of the documents that were part of the last meeting and then also this meeting. And then the recommendation is consistent with prior direction of the City Council to adopt a resolution denying the appeal and approving approving and adopting the subsequent initial study, mitigated negative declaration, EA 1710 for the project, development permit 1703, and use permit 1705 with amended conditions of approval. I do want to note that both the applicant and appellant have reviewed the resolution and have signed off on that, and I believe they'll be speaking this evening to express their support for the resolution tonight. So I can answer any questions that the council might have.
Any questions? Nothing? Okay. All right, Darren, thank you very much. We're going to basically proceed with the same process we went before. For formality's sake, we'll have Stop the Dump representatives will have an opportunity to speak for 10 minutes, followed by Recycling Industries representative 10 minutes. I'll go ahead and then open the public hearing. We have no speaker cards on that agenda item. And after all members of the public have an opportunity to comment, Stop the Dump representatives may have a total of 6 minutes to offer any rebuttal or closing remarks, followed by Recycling Industries representatives to do the same thing. We will then close the public hearing. And of course, to take any comments or questions from staff or council at that time. And City Clerk, we can take note that all reports and other written materials are on file, and nothing new today. Okay, thank you very much. Okay.
And Mr. Mayor, may I also clarify for
Sure.
the record that all comments and reports, documents, and everything else from the prior hearing are incorporated into this
Yes.
particular hearing as well? Just wanted to reemphasize.
Yes, thank you for clarifying that. We do have everything all on file, so nothing is new as of today.
Nothing new as of today.
What's that?
Nothing new as of
Okay.
today.
So first, we're going to hear the appellant, Stop the Dump. Is that you?
Yes.
All right, welcome.
Hi, my name is Bridget Barnes. I'm here representing Stop the Dump. I was involved in reviewing the all of the actual resolutions that are before you. They do accurately represent the modifications we worked through with your city attorney and with attorneys for recycling industries. And unless a member of the city council has any questions, I have nothing further to add. I support the resolutions as stated.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Anybody have anything? We do not?
Thank
Through
you
the
very
mayor?
much.
Yes.
So just for the purposes of the record, Bridget, you agree on behalf of your clients that the resolution and to the resolution and the attached conditions of approval, is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Anybody else care to speak? Okay. How about from Recycling Industries? Anybody care to say anything? Very good.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Pat Mitchell on behalf of Recycling Industries, 3001 Lava Ridge Court, Roseville, California. First, we'd just like to thank staff for all their work on the project, both the city attorney's office and the interim development director. They've been very helpful through the whole process. And we also support the staff report in its entirety. We support the resolution in its entirety. We're involved in reviewing those before they were made final. And we have no further comments unless you have any questions for me. That's all we have to say.
Nothing from us. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Through the mayor, if I may.
Go ahead.
So just for the purposes of the record, you agree on behalf of your client to the resolution and attached conditions of approval? Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We're not supposed to. We're asking to. All right. Let's see here.
Mayor, can I add one thing?
You sure may.
For the record, the applicant provided us a list of names and the city for all of their petitions, and that was part of the record. Today, they actually dropped off 800, I think, petitions in a box that will be part of the record that we will include that I just received before the city council meeting. So we already had received all of that information. I apologize that I did not let the clerk know that,
Okay.
but I did receive that right before the city council meeting this
All
evening.
right. Thank you very much. And who was that on behalf of?
So that was
I
on
missed that.
behalf of the applicant,
Yeah.
Recycling Industries. They
Recycling
provided
Industries.
us an Excel sheet with all the names and the cities. This was the actual petitions themselves, which they provided to us.
All right. Thank you very much. Anybody from council have any comments? Staff, anybody have anything? Okay, we'll go ahead and close public hearing. Hearing is closed. Back to council for action. For deliberation, if you would prefer.
Through the mayor.
Yes, sir.
A couple of points of clarification, and Mr. Chaffin, if you can help me with this, if I don't clarify correctly, because this was the question I posed to you earlier today. I was confused, and I practice an area of tax law, the wording on this, the fact that we have to deny the appeal, but yet we're adopting a resolution that's been jointly approved. And this is simply a legal maneuver that we have to do. It's not saying one side's right, another side's wrong. This is simply how we reach an ends and a means to what both sides have come together to do. And it allows us to put additional conditions than what our planning commission originally put on that. Am I clear in my thought process in stating that?
Yes, council member, in order for the project to go forward, as agreed to by the parties, there would have to be technically a denial of appeal, but that's a legal issue given the code as the way that it's set up. So it's not necessarily saying that you agree or disagree with the planning commission. It's just a mechanism to allow the parties to go forward with the agreement that they've reached.
Correct, because if we denied it, then we would or approved it, we would basically have to start at square one again. But by doing this, we're able to proceed.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Very good, thank you. Any further comment or action? Any action? Huh?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we deny the appeal and we adopt the resolution as presented this evening.
I'll second.
All right, before we vote, does anybody have anything else to say real quick?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I have a couple more comments. Not that I want to change anything in the resolution, but as I looked at the resolution, item number 60 in particular was something that this council felt was proper because of our quasi-judicial review of controversial issues as the city council. It states in item 60 that any changes to this permit would come back to the city council for changes in the future if our policies allow that. And it's my understanding, and if Mr. Chaffin if he can chime in, if he has any note or knowledge of this, does our current policies allow this or not? Because our current policies says that it goes through staff, planning commission, and has to be reappealed back to the city council. But we have a resolution that says it's coming back to us if our policies allow it. So are they in conflict at this point?
They are not in conflict because a resolution can't modify an ordinance, but it does provide a mechanism in the future if the city council were to take actions to update its ordinance to allow a direct appeal or to be a matter of first impression to be considered by the council. So currently, if you have to go through it, you'd have to go through the planning commission and have an appeal before you go through it. But these already have conditions baked in with the conditions of approval that if the council were to adopt an ordinance in the future, it would allow it to come to you right off the bat.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's my only comment. I would like to revisit this under my council member comments later this evening.
Yes, thank you very much. All right, so we have a motion to adopt the updated resolution as attached to our staff report and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Done. All right. Thank you very much. Start crushing those aluminum cans. Let me give a couple seconds here. Uh-oh. Okay. Thank you.